Okay, this is take 3. I'm trying to answer some questions that were posed to me regarding my welding table. So I thought I'd go ahead and answer those. My welding table fits in my garage. You can see I'm trying to share it with a vehicle. So everything in my garage had to be mobile. So starting from the bottom, I have some locking casters on every single corner. And it's been great to be able to move this around. Make sure you use a large caster and a nice one. It makes this table probably weighs in the range of 400 pounds is my guess, and that's not with the stuff that's on it, that's just the table itself. And so you want some good casters so you can move it around easy enough if you're going to do what I did. Moving up, I actually used 1/4 inch thick 2x2 square tubing, and that was because I didn't know any better at the time. That's a little thick for this size of table. You know, if you're going to be using some 1-inch plate or something on top, yeah, maybe you want to do that. But for this size of table, I could have easily got away with 14 gauge, but you know, you have to work with metal for a while to kind of understand before, you know, what you may or may not need as far as thickness of material. Anyway, I did 1/4 inch. I think you'd be fine with 2x2 square tubing that is maybe 14 gauge material, maybe a little thicker if you wanted to, like a 1/8 inch or something like that. But the only reason I would maybe recommend thicker tubing is just because your tabletop is heavy and maybe you want to lower the center of gravity. That's the only reason I would go with a thicker tube. I wouldn't do it necessarily for structural reasons. Well, I've got this shelf on the bottom that I made out of this expanded metal. It's been really nice. I haven't painted the whole bottom of this table yet. I just haven't found a need because I modify it occasionally. But anyway, this bottom table, I ended up putting this recessed area in here, and I did that just in case I ever wanted to buy a TIG torch with a foot controller. I could put it right there and sit right next up to the table and you know, weld or whatever. Even if I never do get a TIG welder, which I'm not likely to, I still like having this recess just because, you know, I'm always working right here on this side of the table. So I would recommend doing that. Next, moving up, you'll notice I have some receiver hitch here. I have some up here. And on every single receiver hitch, I just welded a nut. And then I have a bolt with a handle where I can tighten down whatever device I want to push into the table, like this vise, for instance. I have this vise and various benders, rollers, bench top grinder, and everything. Those all fit well onto the table wherever I need them to, and I can tighten them down. I even put one, sorry, tripped on a bike. I even put one on this side. I'm plan on adding another one down here, maybe even pointing one in the other direction here so I can put the vise out this direction. I've had need to do that, so I'm thinking about doing that, and that's one reason I haven't painted the bottom is because I'm modifying it. Something I did when I built this table was I created this square box area. I was going to cut out the plate and put in a plasma cutting section for a hand torch. That never came to fruition because I ended up buying this Torchmate table, and so I wouldn't do that again. This table is 2 foot 8 inches wide, 4 foot 8 inches deep. That's a little bigger than I was planning on making it originally, and I'm actually glad I went bigger. If I had the space out, I would build even a bigger table if I could. The table is 38.5 inches tall from the bottom of the caster to the top of the 1/2 inch plate up here. I'm 6'1", and if I were to build it again, I would probably cut 1 inch to 1 inch, maybe 2 inches off of that height. And it's a great height for working on flat pieces and stuff like that, but if you're going to be working on projects such as this, your arms start getting up in the air when you are building these things up, and it would be easier if the table was just slightly lower. And so that's why I mentioned that, because that was one of the hardest things I had to decide when I was building this table, is how tall to make it. And it works. I'm not going to go and build a new table, you know, or even cut off a couple of inches to get a little bit lower, but if I were to build it again, that's just something I would consider. I used a 1/2 inch plate on the top. That's as thin as I would go. I don't think I'd go any thinner than that. It's been a great thickness for this size of table. Any table bigger than this, I would definitely go with a thicker plate. If I were to rebuild this again, I would maybe go with a 5/8 inch. A lot of people recommend going as thick as you can to get a flat plate, but this has been great. 1/2 inch plate, 5/8 inch for this size of the table I think is a good thickness. Besides, if you put a 1-inch plate on there, then you start getting a lot more top heavy and things. So one of the final modifications I made to my table, which has been great, was I added this electrical plug here. This is an outdoor plug so that it can close over the sockets here and keep the welding dust out. Not that I ever get welding dust in there. And I ended up welding this on. I ran an extension cord into it to feed it. The extension cord does have the ground, so I ended up grounding it to the table. And then I just have this bar here that I can wrap the cord around and plug it into my 20 amp circuit over there on the wall. And if I end up moving my table somewhere over here away from the walls, I can always plug my different various grinders or whatever tools into there, and it's been great. So those are the things that I've done basically on the table. Hope it gives you some ideas. This was the very first project I built. I had a 110 volt MIG welder at the time, and so this is what I learned to weld on. And it was a great project to start with. It's been a great asset in my garage, and I'm glad to have it.